What is up, Hexicans and Pulsinators? Welcome back to another video. I want to lead with this clip from the community that I thought was pretty funny.
What are you doing, Alison?
I'm buying cheap HEX.
With what?
With this.
What the hell?
Pretty funny, right? Shout out to that guy and his daughter. That's what the community's all about, onboarding your loved ones and teaching them about good products like HEX. So it's been a pretty exciting past few days for HEX. If you look at the chart, up like 45%. Now this 3-cent range, once you bounce off it, which we obviously have bounced, you're looking for 7 cents. So if you're thinking about like the next price level that we could reach in the short term, I would be saying 7 cents. Cosmo Jenkins, who is much better on the charts than me, says, I don't want to get anyone excited too soon, but this is the type of bounce we want to see off the 4-cent range for HEX. If it can turn this area into legit support, we might be seeing 55 or 0.55 as the next local top again. So he's calling 5.5 cents. I was calling 7 cents. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, as long as you believe that eventually HEX will revisit and make new all-time highs. All right, the chart looks pretty bad on auto, but when you put on logarithmic, it really changes the whole picture. And it's looking like it's bottoming out, but ultimately we got to wait for the general economy, equities, inflation. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Speaking of inflation too, I have this good clip that I want to show you guys, but I can't find it right now, so I'm just going to leave you with this Richard Hart clip, okay? Major throwback. This is 5 years old, so don't comment that it's old. I just think it's a gem.
The only way you can help your family and yourself is to get other people to help themselves. It's just like Bitcoin. Oh, you bought Bitcoin, but you're the only guy that did it? Okay, well, that's not a currency. Oh, you want to save your life, but we're all made of the same meat? Well, then everyone else needs to save their lives, right? And you've only got so much time. So if you measure, I mean, I've been posting a lot on Twitter. Maybe to some degree I've helped the ecosystem. Maybe to some degree I've gotten people to do less risky stuff. Maybe to some degree the price has reflected my positive efforts. But it's also the case that it was a huge waste of my time. And I could have done almost anything else. And I don't know. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. Satoshi used to work on Bitcoin. And then Gavin decided to do an interview with the CIA, and he was never seen again or heard of again. So to some degree, Satoshi isn't here because the people that he was working with did some shit that he wasn't happy about. And then Gavin himself was working on the project and had people working alongside him, and now he's not. And to some degree, the reason he's not is because people that were working alongside him did some shit he wasn't happy with. And the same goes for Mike Hearn. And the same might go for me. So, I've done everything I can to help this community. Written guides, made price calls, put my social capital next to statements that I pay personal risk for. If you say bad things about Roger Ver that owns Bitcoin.com, boy, what if he decides to get mad at you? That's a risk. That man has actual power. Unlike most of the other little talking, flappy lip little bitches in the space that have no power, Roger Ver is a winner. He creates things. He builds things. He invests in things. That's a fucking winner. So I may disagree with some of his projects, but overall, that guy's net win. And when I do what appears to be public combat with a winner, what's my upside? Some fucking losers decide that I'm cool. I'm not okay with that trade, So my point is, a lot of people that are in the Bitcoin space leave it because there's a bunch of shit-talking losers in the space that don't actually build stuff or get stuff done. I mean, the thing I want in my chat for the most part is developers, because they build things. What's the rarest commodity in the ecosystem? Is it people that make memes? Nope. Is it people that make price calls or trade? Nope. Is it people with opinions about SegWit 2x? Nope. The rarest commodity in the cryptocurrency ecosystem is the developers, because they're the only people that actually build anything. So as far as I'm concerned, like the only short-term good thing that I can think of that would come of the public outreach that I've done for me personally is getting more good developers that want to work with me on building cool stuff. That's it. So I guess the answer is there's a bunch of fair weather friend, like sellout, jealous, angry dudes out there, and if you wouldn't have these problems if you weren't associating with ineffective people in the first place. And Bitcoin, if you want your ecosystem to work better, you got to start showing the people that are on your team that there's a reason to be on your team instead of just switching sides. I mean, can anyone here say that Gavin didn't have a better life by switching to the axis of evil over there? He probably did, right? So how many, if you keep giving people incentives to switch over to worse projects because they get treated better as humans, man, like you're gonna lose more and more people, right? It's odd. I wouldn't call it a tragedy commons. There's some other weird thing going on, but I see a distinct lack of community and lack of like working together. Like I shouldn't have been able to make an impact in the space at all. I shouldn't have been able to come from nowhere and then matter so quickly. But I was able to do that because there's a huge vacuum. Like no one else gives a shit to put in effort so much, right? Like World Crypto Network is probably the most try to make good content, often. And those guys got to beg for money from the community. So the community sucks. This community sucks ass, right? Like the World Crypto Network should have more money donated to them because they're the only people trying. And there should be someone else way cooler than me, spreading the good word. Anyway, on down the list. My true identity being shady. I love this. So let me tell you about the Bitcoin community, right? I made a lot of money in Florida on many, many, many businesses, right? I've been a success since I started my first business out of my front yard. So I started a car stereo store out of my front yard because I had a tooth break and I had to get my tooth fixed. And my father didn't have money and I didn't have money. And so it was either not have my tooth fixed or sell everything I owned and gather up the money to get it fixed. So I put out ads in the local newspaper and in the Bargain Trader for all of the car stereo equipment that I had bought over, my years when I was a young kid. I think I was maybe 18, 19 at the time. And I discovered that the prices that I was able to get for this stuff were basically what I paid for it, except I bought it 2 years earlier. And so I said to myself, oh, well, that's easy. If I can sell stuff that's used after 2 years for the same price I bought it for, I must be getting a really, really good deal. So I said, okay, well, what if I put out ads for stuff that I can get, but I don't have yet? And I had a connection through my father. My father did air conditioning for a guy that worked at a big store. And he said, hey, we can give you cost on this stuff. And so like I put out the ads, people would call me, and I would spend all day driving back and forth from this giant store to delivering to people the stuff that they wanted. And then after I did that for, I guess, a couple months, I had enough money to have an inventory. And then I didn't have to drive as often. I could drive maybe once or twice a week. And then after I did that for a while, I was installing stuff in people's cars. And my father was like, look, you're working all day and all night. When he gets home from work, he wants to just be able to enjoy his life and not have like customers of mine out front. So he's like, you got to get a store. And I think my first store was like $1,200 a month, I think it was $1,200 a month rent. And then I had a girlfriend, and Pops didn't want me, messing around with my girlfriend in the house. And then I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm moving into my store. So, I moved out of my dad's house into my first store, 21 years old, I think, 20, 21, something like that. So then I lived there and hired my friends. And I was lucky because I went to a super genius school where everyone was really, really, really smart. I was one of the dumber people in my school, And so I guess I'll tell you about my school. So when I was in elementary school, they pulled me out of class and had me do this test with blocks. And I think I was only in elementary school for maybe 2 days before they moved me to a different elementary school that was all black. I was one of like 6 or 7% white kids there, which is why I talk different than some other white people sometimes, because I grew up in a different environment. And in this school, we had a super, 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 super amazing gifted teacher where I learned real science and real creative writing, and it was absolutely fantastic. And it was just a gifted program. And so while I was at that school, I got like 3rd place in a math tournament thing. Maybe it was 5th actually. And then I think I got 3rd place in a writing thing with a story called George the Fish. I didn't want to write the stupid story, but they made me do it. So I was like, oh, what's the dumbest thing I can write about? Okay, what's the dumbest name? I don't like the name George. All right, I'll use George. All right, George the Fish. And I just wrote a story about like a fish swimming along and seeing something shiny and like taking a bite and then being drug out of the water. And for some reason, my attempt at like making something that I didn't want to do stupid, people liked a lot. And it was at that point that I discovered that people will read into what you've written things that were not there. And so many authors hear so many great analyses of what they've written, and in reality, they had no intention to write that way at all. But they're like, oh, sure, yeah, that sounds good, yeah, because people are pattern finding machines, and they're going to find patterns. Anyway, so I have a car stereo store, it's working good, and I have a buddy that used to go to Super Genius School with me, and he made shopping cart software. And then I sold his shopping cart software on eBay as like you want to go into the business of like selling websites. Well, this has an automated website builder and shopping cart and email system and payment gateway built in and all that stuff. And then, that sold. And then I got into search engine optimization. And at the time, you could really just read Webmaster World, understand Spoken Hub, understand PageRank. It was the time when the world had transitioned from basically meta tag spamming, which everyone just ignored. Like basically, if you put what you want in your meta tags and I was in charge of the engine, I would subtract that from your score. Because, you want to rank for these things? Well, therefore, you're probably going to be shady about it, and therefore I have to treat you as like an antagonistic actor. And so I would probably penalize people for putting words in their meta tags, because all I care about is what other people say about you. So that's what PageRank is. PageRank is what other people say about you. So once I learned how PageRank worked, I started internetmarketingmasters.com, and I think this was 2002. Well, I know it was 2002 because I looked at the Wayback Machine. And we did pay-per-click management on what was at the time GoTo, which then changed their name to Overture, and they were in charge of all the traffic for Yahoo, which was huge at the time. And then Google didn't even have a pay-per-click program at the time. They didn't have AdWords, and they didn't have like a bidding engine and all that stuff, and that's where all their money comes from now. So it was a really different world back then. So I learned how to do pay-per-click management, I learned how to do SEO, and we got clients that were successful. We had mortgage clients, we had other clients, and with the mortgages, I went and started my own mortgage company, became a licensed mortgage broker, generated leads, used leads, tried to make a website called leadfeeds.com, which would allow you to bid on leads the same way that people were bidding on clicks, which I thought was a pretty good idea. Had a foreclosure bailout company, sex toy store, miracle cleaner, cash advance loans. What else? I'm sure I'm missing something. A lot of stuff, right? And on a media side, we had affiliate programs where people would sign up and get paid a commission. And if you join an affiliate program, you market however you want, right? If you're a guy that has an opt-in email list, great. If you're a guy that does print marketing, great. If you're a guy that does radio, it doesn't really work, but whatever. If you're a guy that has other affiliates and wants to be a second tier affiliate, things like that, it worked out really, really well. And so that worked out great. Had 150 employees. Figured I'd move on with my life. So moved down to the third world, bought a mansion, got the shit robbed out of me. Now, if you move to the third world and you get the shit robbed out of you, the worst part about getting robbed isn't just the loss of money, but it's also that they're going to attack your identity, and they're going to try and talk shit about you and make you not want to pursue them to get your stuff back. So if someone, for instance, if you lend a friend money and he doesn't want to pay you back, he's not only going to not pay you back, he's going to tell all your other friends what a piece of shit you are, because it fits his narrative that you're a piece of shit, so that he can feel better internally about not paying you. And the other people that are in your friend circle are also okay with him not paying you. So the mission is to not get robbed. Now, since I've done so much business, I've had every type of robbery you can think of. I've had people looking over shoulders to steal contacts. I've had hard drives go stolen. I've had actual Secret Service at the office, guns pulled out. I had to pull my gun out. I'll tell that story sometime. It's exciting. That was over credit card fraud. I've had smash and grab, like mace my front office, run with equipment out of the front door. I've had straight up make a copy of my website and compete directly against me and like call my customers. I've had Joe Job. I'll tell you about Joe Job. So if you piss off certain people, like a spammer will gather up every piece of personal information he can find about you, and he'll write the most offensive, angering email that he can write, and then he'll send it to all the people that he thinks will respond the most harshly to it, which would be reporters, customer service agents, like whatever people really don't like spam, right? So this happened to me. Some guy took all the information that he could find and then spammed out my name and my information along with it to try and create problems for me. And here's the funny part. The public, and probably some of you guys watching, are so fucking stupid that you believe that guy. You're like, yeah, this looks good. I've never ever seen an email with anyone's personal contact information all in it before, but this one looks good.